The turnout in the latest local government elections has again been disappointing. I'm joined by Local Government New Zealand Chief Executive, Susan Freeman-Greene. So what do you put the turnout, such a low turnout, down to? What's the reasons?
Look, the turnout across the country is variable. We are seeing really different results in different places, but overall, when you sum it up, 4 out of 10 voters across the country isn't good enough. There are a number of reasons. I think there are some challenges around how connected communities feel to their councils, which is a really big issue. And there's also a genuine challenge about the process of voting, and we make voting in local elections much harder than we do in general elections, and that's why we are really keen to actually push into the space right now and get some change in the system for the next elections.
Well, the Justice Select Committee has recommended twice now, following the 2 previous local body elections, about changes, about perhaps handing over the management of the elections to the Electoral Commission and doing a much bigger sort of burst around it, if you like, as we do for general elections. Would you support those sorts of changes?
We have a remit from our councils a few years ago supporting those changes. So, we all have to ask ourselves the questions about why none of those changes have actually been made. And I think now is a bit of a wake-up call. There is quite a lot of momentum around this. It is great to see in the last few days both sides of the House, for example, talking about needing to make changes to make voting in local government more accessible. We're seeing it from the business community. We're seeing it from community groups. So, we have got some galvanisation and momentum around actually doing something as opposed to talking about doing something. It is so important because actually it's a really critical part of our democracy.
Because would you like to see something similar to what happened, for instance, in the last general election for a good couple of weeks beforehand? If you're wandering into a shopping mall, there was a polling booth. You could walk in and vote before election day. I mean, it was pretty easy to vote. And it appears that postal voting is just not working.
Not fit for purpose, right? There's no silver bullet, but you're right. If you think about central elections, there's a, clear messaging, aligned processes. We all know what the purpose is. We all know what we have to do. Just imagine in local government if there was that degree of clarity and alignment and purpose and promotion. I think that would make a huge difference. I mean, councils would then absolutely have the confidence that, for their really important work, they have the clear mandate from the population, not just from, 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, depending what part of the country you're in.
I guess then the question is, because what we're talking about will cost money, so who pays?
We have to think about that. I think we all have to play a part in that. But actually, if you think about the big picture, local democracy, we're at a stage where, if you think about the global situation, where there's some fragility in our democracy. So if one of our key expressions of democracy, which is local government, and they do such important work, our councils, is withering or allowed to wither, that's not good for any of us.
I guess, should central government step in and just front up with the money to pay for a proper, decent election process?
Well, we would really like to see some recommendations and some commitment from central government to actually recognise the importance of this and invest in it.
I mean, there's always been a little bit of tension between central and local government. I mean, is there a suspicion that central government's happy to see low turnouts and then it can kind of, if you like, say, well, you're not that representative?
believe that both sides of the House are really committed to local democracy. I've been here for 2 years, and those are the messages I constantly get from central government. I think, we see the power of our councils and our community leaders. We see it in so many ways. We see it, we see it in the economic recovery. We've seen it through COVID. We've seen it through how we deal with floods and emergencies. We're going to see it more and more through climate change. So, actually, it is absolutely critical that everyone gets behind the actual importance of local democracy, recognises it, invests in it, in promoting it, and actually helps us all work together to fix this.
I mean, it hasn't always been this way. If you go back to 1989, I think the turnout then
was about 57,
close to 60%. Yeah,
close to 60%. So we're seeing a decline, a gradual decline over a period of time. I've heard the argument that, well, low voter turnout in local elections could be a good thing because it shows everyone's happy. I don't think the facts on the ground demonstrate that. We see a lot of issues in our, the issues that happen in councils and in local communities are front and centre in the media increasingly and obviously. So we really have to take this seriously and use the momentum we have now and the wake-up call we have to arrest this decline and shift it.
Because in the build-up to the election, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about Three Waters reform.
Mm-hmm.
And, there have been advocates, against, who are opposed to it, who've talked about how there's this huge public concern. I mean, one would have expected if there was such massive discontent that people would have got out and voted. So even with big issues like that, or if you look at what's happening in Auckland, people have got a reason to vote on these issues. But
yes, I know. So it's it's curious, and it comes back to some of the things we think about is that for whatever reason, only parts of our community are engaged with the work of councils. Other parts of our communities aren't, and we need to think about that. And that's a piece of work that LGNZ is really focused on. How do we make, create an active and inclusive local democracy where people understand local government council's relevance, where they can contribute to it, participate in it, where there are really clear, live, visible partnerships between the business sector, local government, central government, and community groups, iwi, and we've got pockets of this happening everywhere, but it's not visible in lots of places, and it's not linked back to the absolute critical nature of local democracy and voting. And we think that's a really important piece of work to do.
Susan Freeman-Greene, thank you for your time.
Thank you.